Hey guys and girls, Nathan here. Just thought I'd hop online and do a Facebook Live. I'm going to try and do a bit more consistency with this, guys. I've got a lot of you asking me, when are you coming online? When are you going to do your next live? Is there a live today? Look, I'm going to start doing lives on Tuesdays. Today is Wednesday. But I'm going to do lives every Tuesday from 8 o'clock. So 8 o'clock Tuesdays, I will be here. So make sure that you make this a regular occurrence. So just got the phone call that keeps ringing. It never stops at this end. But I'll wait for you guys to hop online. Hopefully you are all doing well. Is everyone in here? Maybe get a few checks just to make sure that we're thumbs up or smash up the likes or write us a comment. Can't see too many people on here at this point. I think it's working. Maybe they're censoring, what I'm posting out there. Shay's in bed by then. Cool. I can see everyone hopping online now. So thanks for what is going on here? What is going on? Things just keep popping up. Yep, everyone keeps liking. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Got a lot of things to cover off on this evening, and I will get straight into it. So a few little things, just what's happening out there in the news, some new thoughts. Tonight I want to be talking about how deep this is going to get, how bad things are going to be in the future, what we should be watching out for, what concerns I see, what options there are out there for people to protect themselves, what sort of signs are there to say, hey, look, this is where we're actually heading. Cool. So I'm just seeing a few people saying that it was a bit hard to hop on this evening. Sorry about that. So going to hop straight into it. I'm going to read a few notes that I've got here. I'm going to go to the questions that people popped on earlier on the Facebook page, and I'll try and answer some questions as you guys pop them through. So looking at this crisis, what we've got at the moment, I want to think of it. I was watching a Jim Rickard's video earlier on, which I just posted in birchFEED. So if you still haven't gotten a birchFEED, send an email to my office and we'll get you in there and enjoy. Hopefully everyone that's in birchFEED is enjoying it. I see a lot of activity happening in there. So welcome to all the new subscribers. I see there's about 500 new subscribers in the last sort of 2 to 3 weeks. So welcome to everyone that's hopping into birchFEED. It's pretty cool in there. Looking at Jim Rickard's video that I was watching earlier on today, he explained it probably the most perfect that I've seen anyone explain it. And basically, if we think about what happened over at Fukushima or whatever it is, the Fukushima, whatever you want to call it, was it a nuclear attack, whatever it was? What happened back then is that there was an earthquake. The earthquake caused a tsunami. Tsunami came in, blew up the nuclear reactor, and then there was a nuclear problem, and then there was an economic problem that came from that. So if we look at today's issue that we have in the marketplace, a lot of people are going, I've just seen here Nick says, but scamdemic, does that mean that you're not sold on that word being legitimate? If so, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Nick, very good question. I could go on for hours about it. Hop into birchFEED. I've posted a lot of information on my thoughts about it. I do believe that it's a sickness. People are getting sick and dying and whatnot, so everyone should be safe. But people get sick, die all the time. People get cancer, people suicide, people get in domestic violence and things like that. And the reality is that they don't stop the whole world because of this. If you go and look at a lot of information out there and dissect the data, you'll see that there's some controlling entities and people which this could benefit to happen, and I'm more along the lines of that and covering up the GFD inside of the scamdemic. I can't even use a word with the numbers in it. So but I'm not 100% sold on it. I do believe that there's a problem there. However, if we look at the problem at hand, we've got businesses that are closing, people that can't go to work, people aren't out buying things, people aren't flying in planes. From this one trigger point, we can now all join together with the common enemy as a world, and everyone's got the same problem. We're all trying to fight this elusive. Like back in 2001, we were looking for a Muslim terrorist organisation which killed people allegedly in New York with some planes allegedly crashing into a building. I only use the word allegedly if I don't know, I haven't seen it myself happen, but and people, very racist at the time, and whatnot. And here we are with everyone standing together around the world for an agenda, potentially to sell us an IMF SDR, which I'll get onto shortly. But we've got everyone in the world going, this Corona scam is happening. We all got to stop. And then we start seeing planes aren't in the sky, businesses aren't functioning. Basically, every company in the world is at a standstill. Some big corporations, only the biggest corporations. Have you noticed the mum and dad businesses aren't in place, but the biggest corporations that are in the world are still trading actively, right? I did go to Macca's the other day and bought just a little burger from there. When I say a little burger, they keep getting smaller and smaller every time you go. But I did notice that they had milk and gourmet buns, which is a cheeseburger bun, the biggest piece of shit I've ever seen, and whatnot. But you've got all these shops which are closed. You've got a lot of business which is not happening and being conducted at the moment. And the thing is this is going to have a great consequence. So if we have the earthquake, should we call it, back in Fukushima, we have the earthquake moment, which is everyone's scared of this Corona scam, mop the floor with the Corona scam. The tide is going out. So we've got a deflationary cycle at the moment. They're injecting liquidity in the system to make sure everyone's getting their $1,500 a fortnight. Businesses are getting stimulated. Liquidity is going in the businesses and whatnot. It's all come out as a big tide, and it's going to go in and smash into the power plant. The power plant is a time bomb, and I want to go and talk a little bit about that right now and talk about what some of those potential nuclear power plants could be, which will explode in the economy in a not too distant future. So what we've got to remember is that I've got an ear issue at the moment. Maybe they're trying to get me with it. This has never been seen before, guys. People are saying, is it going to be a depression like 1929? Like 1929 is the biggest recorded sort of depression that was seen around the world. But it wasn't it was a global depression, but it was very different to what we're seeing at the moment. This is very different to anything we've ever seen. Every shopping centre is empty. Businesses are, in big trouble at the moment. I was talking to someone the other day, and 90%. This is a professional services person. Their clients are businesses, and 90% of those businesses that are represented there, which are sort of fixed retail shops, have disappeared over the course of the month of March 2020. So, what will be the ramifications of this? Things may turn back to normal. I should have got that bottle of water as well. Things could turn back to normal. When would they turn back to normal? In a month? In 2 months? I think we're here, for 6 months, September, October, that sort of time frame, with an environment like what we've got at the moment. But whatever happens, the damage is already done. It doesn't matter if they say everyone go back to work tomorrow. What about the pubs that couldn't operate? What about the gym operators that operated a gym? What about the food shops down the road? What about the Chinese restaurant down the road? Right? What's happened to these people? What's happened to their businesses? What's going to happen in the future? The only way out of this, sorry, just getting more messages coming in from people at the moment of random stuff that I should talk about. But, these businesses are going to be severely impacted. Everyone's going to go do their tax returns. So there's a fiduciary duty to do your tax return at the end of the financial year. these companies on the stock market. So whether it be Webjet, whether it be Qantas, whether it be whatever company that you want to look at, they're going to report. It could be a bank, right? I'm going to talk a lot about banks this evening as well, guys, and what's going to happen, what my thoughts are on the mortgage freeze, all that sort of stuff. But when these companies report in July, in the end of June and the start of July and August, they start doing the tax returns and they report that they've been insolvent and they've been bankrupt throughout the course of financial year 2019, 2020. They have to hand out their reports around September and October. What's going to fucking happen to every company in the stock market when they all go, we're all bankrupt, right? What's going to happen, right? We're talking about $300 billion worth of stimulus so far. This is going to end up in the trillions just here in Australia, in the trillions worth of stimulus. We haven't even seen the start of it yet. What about when all the companies report that they are bankrupt and they all collapse, right? That will happen, and that will happen around September and October. Obviously, no financial advice here. Don't go short the markets based on what I'm saying. I'm that crazy guy that comes to you in Facebook. But, if you've got a super fund, you've got a couple of months to sort yourself out. Everybody here has a super fund. I know hundreds of people hop online. If you have a super fund, send us a message. If you've got a parent which is retired, don't know what to do, reach out. I'll get my team to speak to you. Things are really busy and we're booked out for months. So I'll try to fit you guys in and see what we can do. A lot of people are saying what's going to happen to rents. There's a massive wave of stimulus coming. Will rents be covered by the government? I don't know, right? I'm going to take it not from just the rents at the moment, but I'm going to take it to another step and look at what's going to happen to the banks. So one of my friends sent me this morning a whole pile of articles, which I did post in birchFEED. For those of you that are tuning in, sign up with birchFEED. It's free. You don't even have to be a tight ass, right? Just go and email my team your phone number and they'll book you in. So one thing that's been happening all around the world is every single bank, like here's one from ING in ECB. It says here the ECB is to freeze the bank dividends due to that word with the number on it that they call it. The measure is expected to keep $30 billion in the system and is aimed at supporting the bank's capacity to absorb the losses. US bank scraps dividend as recession fears build across Europe. New Zealand banks stop dividends. What this means for the Aussie Big Four. Then there's a letter that came out yesterday talking about the to all authorised deposit-taking institutions and insurers, capital management. It says banks and insurers have a critical role to play in supporting Australian households, businesses and the broader economy during this period. Sufficient disruption caused by that word. APRA has made recent adjustments to regulatory requirements and timelines, including the ability to entities to use capital buffers if needed. With this support very much in mind. Basically, I'm not going to read the whole thing out. It's in birchFEED. Just go there, get the document. They're saying that the banks are to put out, dividends for the year, which is very interesting. I believe that the banks are bankrupt. Imagine no one paying their mortgage for the course of 2020, right? There's fuckwits out there taking advantage of things. There's people trying to dodge rents and stuff like that. Not at Blink, of course. You need to make sure, like I was just on the phone to someone earlier on tonight saying, my tenant's come to me, my tenant has said that they can't pay the rent, and I've got to give them a reduction. You don't have to give anyone a fucking reduction, right? At this point, the bank bank's still charging you interest rates, right? The government hasn't given you stimulus packages. So if you reduce that rent, let's say that someone's paying you $500 a week rent and they say they can only pay you $200 a week, right? And I'm not saying people don't have problems, right? You can say to that person, okay, I'll just drop your rent down. We'll re-sign a new lease from $500 to $200, which will help out. However, what you've got to look forward at is that, if you're in that shortfall of the $300 a week, you have now pushed the rent. You've agreed to the tenant not to pay that, right? For me and for my clients, they're to put the rent will be in arrears. Let it go to arrears. The reason being is that you can claim it on insurance. You can claim it as a debt. You can, if you say, I'm going to drop the rent down, and then you go to Terry Shear or EBM, whoever your insurer is, you're actually screwing up the security. So when, let's say that an insurance company, say your rent's $250 per week, the tenant doesn't pay rent for 4 weeks, there's $1,000 outstanding, you could technically go to your insurance company and say, look, tenant didn't pay the rent, I want my $1,000. If you agreed to a lower rent, they will say, well, you avoided it, you didn't come to us, so we're not going to pay it, right? Let's assume that the insurance company goes, here's your $1,000 for the rent that's lost. Do they just cop it themselves? No, that rent that they paid you, the $1,000 that they paid you, the insurer can actually wrap that up as a packaged asset, and then they can sell that debt to be collected to a debt collection firm, and then they could sell it for maybe 10 cents in the dollar, 20 cents in the dollar, and whatnot. And then someone will buy the insurance company's books as an asset and go and chase those tenants down the track. So, be very careful with the actions that you are taking on your rents. But if we're looking at the banks, simply from the bank front, I believe that we're going to see a bank holiday. A bank holiday is not a holiday where they all go on holidays. It is basically a lockdown of the financial system. They have locked it down multiple times in the past. If we look here, I've got some dates here. The New York Stock Exchange closed from August 2014 till December 2000. The New York Stock Exchange closed in 1914 in the First World War till December 1914. And it closed for a period of 5 months because there was too much of a fall and a decline in the market. Today, there is different monetary policies where they can just print more debt and buy up the books, which is what's happening currently in the stock markets around the world. If we look at 1933, there was an executive order where the banks were closed, which is when they made the Gold Confiscation Act of 1933. And the banks were closed for a period of 8 days, but no one knew when they were going to reopen. We could literally be at a point where your money is locked into the banks or whatnot for a period of days, weeks, or months, right? If someone said you'd all be on house arrest going back a few months ago, I would have said that you're crazy. Aliens must have invaded us. There's a war or whatnot. People are literally begging to stay in under house arrest, right? It's like, like children that have never grown up. They're still stuck to the system. It's like, mummy, can I go out? It's like, it's yeah. So what could happen with the banks? Who knows, right? But if people are not paying their mortgages, right, the banks are going to need a bailout. So this is a massive, massive problem, right? I think it's bigger than the governments. I think it's bigger than the central banks. I actually think the central banks' balance sheets are going to get too big and with too much debt. There'll be literally trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars worth of money printed to try and starve off this crisis. And we'll end up having to see the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which has a very clear, if you go and have a look at their books, they've got a very clear balance sheet. As I said in my last week's video and in other times that I've talked, that I believe that we'll see the IMF come in and do a thing called a special drawing rights. So people will still feel like they're using money, but it's actually backed by a special drawing right, which is getting us closer and closer to that one world government. And I believe I said this 2 years ago to those of you that are in my mentoring program. I said this on video that we would see the IMF come in, buy up the balance sheets of all the central banks around the world, and we would see a one world sort of currency. There's one more cycle to go through the system until the dollar is dead. I do not expect that the dollar will die overnight. I don't believe it will die overnight. I think that we're going to see a lot of, like that earthquake that happened, which is what's happening now. the tide to go out, everyone thinking, oh yeah, everything's fine, we just had a little bit of a shake on the ground, the water's getting sucked out in the ocean, it's going to fucking slam. Like it's going to slam straight in to the shore, and whatever it wipes out in the process, it will sort of go through at that period of time. So on that note, I believe we're going to see, so just to recap, I believe we're going to see stock markets collapse on or around September to October this year when reporting comes out. If you have a super fund, protect it. Right? Speak to my team, flick me an email. Email's in the description box. Reach out, have a chat with my team, see what we can do to protect that. Secondly, the tide's going to come in. It's going to, could we see a bank freeze? Anything's possible, right? Everyone's stuck in the house. They're feeding you full of stimulus packages, trying to keep you at home. Be a good little kid. Here's for $1,500. Just don't come and annoy us, whatever. A lot of people ask me about property market. So there's people coming out saying property will fall by 20%, property will fall by 40%, right? If I wanted to, I could go and have a shave and go and hit up my friends at the TV and go and put out some agenda and propaganda that could say whatever I wanted to say, right? And there's a lot of fearmongers out there. Some of them like Harry Dent, for example. There's a lot of other ones out there that are saying the sky's going to fall in. A lot of these people go on tours and they talk about certain things. They sell their book. They've got an upcoming book, an upcoming speaking tour, upcoming course, whatever, and they will sell tickets to these things. Reality of it is, they've been doing it for a long time and, do it to spread fear. Last time this occurred, there was some people coming out in, I remember it was a 60 Minutes interview, and it was in about February 2016 from memory, because people were saying, oh, this guy is on TV and he's like, saying that the market's going to fall by 40% and whatnot. This guy, I found out, I did a bit of research into him, and what he was doing is he was shorting the bank stock. So he was using it so people would he was shorting the bank stocks so he could profit from people fleeing the bank stocks because they thought that there was going to be a run on these things. So, a lot of these people have their agenda. So just be careful of that. Secondly, am I concerned about the property market falling? I'm seeing the opposite, and I'm not here to pump up the market. I'm just sharing information. I'm probably the biggest buyer of property out there from a commercial base. I buy, lots of properties. A lot of people try and say, oh, how is Nathan's business going? I could do like 50 to 100 deals per month, property-wise, for myself and for other people that I buy. However, what I've seen recently is there's a lot of people out there in the marketplace trying to gazump or trying to buy a bargain, right? And there's no stock coming out. So there's a lack of stock coming in the marketplace. People are fearful. Vendors are not coming into the marketplace. People don't want people traveling through their homes. There's a lack of stock in the marketplace, right? There's a lack of stock at the moment. Property is being pulled from the market, etc. You've got people that are opportunistic, that are wanting to enter the market. There's so many people sitting around the outside saying, oh, property's going to crash. I'm cashed up. I'm ready to take action, whatever the case may be. All those people sitting there, they're putting a pent-up demand. They're supporting the market and holding it up. Reality of it is that there's a bigger problem that's bigger than me, bigger than all of you watching this, and the market, right? The bank requires all of us to be in their system, understand how the chessboard is that you work on, and you'll understand, the parameters of what there is to work with. The banks require us as mortgage holders to pay our mortgages. They need us there as a tax slave so they can have us a part of their system. So ultimately, if the market dropped by 20%, this is what would happen. Anyone that bought their property, with a 20% deposit would now be negative equity. So they say that 30% of the properties are, 20% or higher in like 80% or higher in LVR, those people would now be in negative equity. The bank would lose 1/3 of its balance sheet and would be in negative equity. The value of the banks would go down. The whole system would implode. So they need to keep that propped up as much as they can. So they will do whatever they need to do to stimulate the economy. Interest rates down at a 0.25%. Right? For those of you that didn't see my last week's video, go watch it. But I'll be very short with this week. At a 0.25% interest rate, if the interest rate was go from 0.25% to 1%, which was only like 1% like 5 months ago, 6 months ago, if it was to go back to 1%, that would mean that the $300 billion that the government just pulled out and the other $1 trillion it's going to get the next couple of weeks. Look at I'm smiling from fucking ear to ear, right? Like, I'm going to have to worry about wrinkles on my cheeks now because I'm going to smile so much. But the stimulus packages that are going to come out, the government debt at a 0.25% going to 1%, which is stupid, right? It means that they would 4x, the debt would become 4 times more what it is, right? Imagine all the businesses now that need loans at 0%. Imagine those businesses that are on their knees taking out 0% debt and then it goes to 1%. That's 4 times. Right? So the reality is that this debt is stuck at 0, right? And the worse that it gets, the greater chance of it going negative will be. So, that is where we're heading to in the not too distant future. And, with interest rates at 0% and with a stock market that dropped by 40% over the course of the last month, it has recovered fraudulently, of course, because they're just buying up the balance sheet out there, the central banks, from the super funds that have lost sort of 30% or 40% over the course of a month. There's a lot of people out there saying they want to roll over their super funds now. A lot of you, it's a bit late, but there's still opportunity. A lot of people will be in a lot of shit moving forward when so just seeing messages keep coming through. With birchFEED, if you want to get on birchFEED, just need to email my office, admin@binvested.com.au. Just send them an email with your phone number. It is an app to download on your phone. They will add you to it and get you connected with it. So it's for free. So, but yeah, with it, forget what I was saying, guys. Forget what I was saying. I know it was good. Here with your super funds, there is a small window of opportunity to protect yourself. If we look at, here's just another picture that came from a friend earlier. It says here, coronavirus slowdown hopes to boost Wall Street. Wall Street sets a record closing high as coronavirus fears subside. Guys, I don't know if you've fucking seen it. Right, there's 300 or 400,000 people with it in the US now, right? There's allegedly like tens of thousands. There's more people dying every day. There's like thousands of people dying, literally thousands of people dying per day in the US. But the stock market is at an all-time high in a day, right? The largest growth ever in a day. How the fuck does that happen is a question you need to be asking yourself, because it's a Ponzi scheme. It is money that's being injected into the system. If you notice that as the Dow goes up, your Bitcoin goes up, and everything's getting inflated away, right? For this to keep going on, they're going to keep doing this, right? Because if one of these things crack, it's like the water coming flying in. It'll wipe out that nuclear power plant in Fukushima, whatever the fuck it is. And take out things. So they need to be very, very careful with injecting liquidity to keep this market buoyant. It is a fucking trap, right? I feel that the real part of the crash will come, and this is just me as a layman talking common sense with a group of people online. Make up your own decision, do your own financial research on this. But when the companies have to report, when all their data of all the companies are bankrupt for the period of 2020, you need to be asking yourself, how is this sustainable and how is this not going to collapse? And I believe that we'll all be able to see the ramifications of that, but it's going to be a little bit too late. And one of the things that I think is really important, talking about a little bit too late, is I would be rather 1 day early than a fucking minute too late. And I spoke about this with my mentoring program over the course of 20 2018 and 2019 when I was doing the mentoring program. For you guys that were in there, you had a good 12 months head start, 24 months head start. There's a fucking 6-month window tops before like all the water's getting sucked out, right? The earthquakes occurred, tsunami sucking out, it's about to crash in, right? It will happen in and around September, October this year. Real damage will occur. They've got to protect the area, tape it all off, whatnot. The injections of liquidity that will occur later in 2020, that's when like my fucking cheeks will crack because of the smiles of how happy I'll be, right? Because there will be stimulus coming in like nothing else, right? It will destroy a lot of people's super funds. Your super fund may remain and look like it's the same in the future because the market will go boop and then they'll boost it back up. But when they boost it back up, everything else has gone up. So it'll never be able to catch back up. So make sure you protect it. I've got a couple of little articles here. One is from Channel Commie. This is ABC, bunch of communist fucks over there. It says here, as a part of its coronavirus response, the RBA is creating money out of thin air. This is how. What the fuck? When are they saying this? They're just saying they're printing money out of thin air. Who would have thought? There's a big garage door very close to the corner of Martin Place and Phillip Street in Sydney CBD. If you stand on the other side of the street long enough, you'll see an armoured truck with a large police escort pulling into the driveway. It's like a scene out of The Italian Job. Yeah, it's got some fucking Zionists robbing Australians and robbing the rest of the world, fucking printing money and stealing it via inflation. No one even knows what the fuck's going on. At least in those Italian Job movies, they made it fun. They had guns and they'd shoot people and things look fun. But these guys are just doing it straight in front of you. Whilst you're at home, fucking scared as shit, asking to be under house arrest. Anyway, that's the image you might summon when you think of the Reserve Bank printing money, a truck chock full of cash arriving at the mint with brand new money, the Reserve Bank unloading it and then pushing that money into the economy. But now the Reserve Bank is creating money out of thin air instead. It's been creating money out of thin air for ages. All they're doing is adding an extra decimal place. Go, oh, well, instead of having 50 zeros next to it, let's move it over and make it 51 zeros on it. So it says here, Reserve Bank confirms money printing. In recent weeks, the Reserve Bank has been buying government bonds, hence why we have seen the bond rates going up. As the bonds are rising, the markets are starting to recover. They are all connected one by one by one. That's what I've been sharing with you guys in birchFEED for the last 2 years with all the little indicators that I look at. As I see a major change, show it out and show you what's about to come and follow on from that. It's been doing this by expanding its balance sheet. It sounds technical, but it's actually really simple. Most households have a budget. This is the fucking dumbest way I've ever seen it explained, but it's pretty funny. Most households have a budget, and if you wanted to, you could create your own balance sheet. Of course, everyone should have a fucking balance sheet. You should know your money. You should know your budget. You should know how to run your house. That's why people go bankrupt, because they don't. So your car would be listed as an asset and your credit card debt would be a liability. Who hasn't watched Rich Dad, Poor Dad? The thing is your cash is fixed. You have income coming in every fortnight or every month, and unless you get a pay rise, it doesn't change. If you're a property investor, if you're a business owner, if you own different types of financial instruments, you could have more income coming through. But let's just say it is the ABC communist channel, and reaching out to a certain demographic out there. But they'll say here, what if, however, you could create money? You just sit at home, go to your balance sheet and change your $10,000 in the bank to $100,000 easy. You could buy more stuff using your debit card, no need to print your own money. That is what the Reserve Bank has now done. They're actually not even hiding it anymore. They're not even hiding it. The communist fucking government-backed totalitarian fascist fucking media institute, ABC, is coming out just going, oh, look, that's what they're doing. They're just moving the decimal place around. But yeah, it says here, asset purchase, also known as quantitative easing, involves the outright purchase of assets by the central bank from private sector, with the central bank paying for these assets by creating central bank reserves. So all these zombie companies that are out there are being bought by the central banks. But next time, we're going to see the central bank's balance sheet look too ugly, and we're going to see this new one come in, which is the IMF, with a special drawing right, and it'll take the Australian bank, the New Zealand bank, the US Fed, they'll all go under this. Reserve Bank wrestling all interest rates on the floor. Now that the Reserve Bank has a license to print money, well, it always had, it's going into 3-year bond market and buying up all the bonds. Well, that's what's happening with the bond market, right? You can't go bankrupt in this market, guys. You can't go bankrupt in this market. Here's another one here from the CNBC, which says, the Corona scam mortgage bailout. There is going to be complete chaos, says the industry CEO. So, yeah. It says here, the CARES Act mandates that all borrowers with government-backed mortgages will be allowed to delay at least 90 days of monthly payments and possibly up to a year's worth. Services are granting the payment deferrals to borrowers with no questions asked, or as is required by the law, but the services still have to pay the mortgage bondholders. It's frankly frustrating and ridiculous at that. So imagine this, right? The people don't have to pay the bank, but the bank still has to pay the money where it come from, right? So that's the part where we're now at a predicament where it's like Face Off, and not Con Air, the Nicolas Cage movie, Face Off, where him, John Travolta, all hold the guns, and they're like, wee, what a predicament, right? Because we're at a point now where no one can move, right? We're at a point where whoever moves is going to die. And, this is only going to be fixed by printing over it. It's going to be stimulus package after stimulus package. They're going to wipe the floor with this. That's why it's called a Corona scam, because it's a scamdemic, because in short, all that they are doing is wiping the floor, throwing everything in here and blowing it all up at the same time. So it's interesting. I believe we're going to see somewhere around that September, October, November, I believe that we're going to see all stock markets around the world freeze up. I think we're going to see all the banks freeze up. Very, very possible, because this physically cannot be calculated. You can't even calculate this shit, right? They're either going to have to print so much fucking money to fix this, and they're going to have to do that anyway. And it's going to kabushka, right? That's a cool word, kabushka. It's going to be like Chernobyl of the financial markets. No one's going to be fucking walking out of that one. So interesting times, guys. As I mentioned beforehand on this page, I was doing a Facebook Live and got a few of you guys to put some comments down and questions and whatnot. So I'm going to go through a few of your questions here, and I'm going to come back and read some of your questions. So if you have if you have questions, write them in the message box. I'll read some of these questions first. What's your take on removal homes onto a bought block, renovating them, keeping them for cash flow, then repeating the process? I have done that beforehand, made some money out of it. A little bit of waste of money, but a little bit of waste of time, because I've been doing other things. But there is opportunities out there. I was recently just speaking to some people in Queensland in order to move some other houses onto some sites. I didn't get around to do it. Would I do it again? Maybe. If I had the time, I'd do it. There's opportunities out there with it. But things can go wrong as well. Getting finance for the house to be removed and replaced would be hard, so you have to do it cash. And quite frankly, if you have that cash that you could build that house, you could possibly use that cash to go and buy a whole new property, 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand. You can buy properties for those sort of prices. Pete, hi Nathan, with landlord insurance on embargo, if anyone purchased a new property now, is anyone issuing insurance policies at the moment? Good question. I believe Terry Shear and EBM are not doing landlord insurance policies for tenants due to the fact that they're going to just be, you pay them $300 and they're going to be paying you $300 a week. I have heard that some of the banks are doing that, and some other places like NRMA maybe, Allianz maybe, GIO maybe Westpac insurance, maybe. Like, there's lots of maybes there. I'm not a financial advisor, can't give you that advice. However, just do a ring around to a few companies. I'm sure someone would be doing landlord insurance policies, and I have had our investors being able to get landlord insurance policies from their lenders and whatnot. So it is a fiduciary duty for a bank to ensure that you have insurance policies in place. So I encourage, if you can't get insurance out there, speak to your bank, because if your property is uninsured, it's their asset anyway. So just remember, right, the bank is more invested than you are in the deal, right? If you blow up, they can just take it off you and give it to the next person to sign it. But if their asset blows up, they're going to lose all the value from it. So just on that front, go and look around. I'm sure there's people out there that you can get insurance from. What percentage rate do you plan on locking your rates in? Have you got a number in your head? Do you think it will be anytime soon? No, I'm not fixing rates anytime soon. I do want to fix my rates in the not too distant future. I personally do have a number in my head. Everybody here, don't go fucking run out and do this or whatever. This is just me personally. You've asked me a question, I'm answering you as a person. I plan on fixing my interest rate somewhere between 0% and 1.5%. But I'm talking about like a 5-year to 10-year fixed rate at that point, because basically zero. Could it go down to negative 2%? It could. But when you've got free money and it's endless, I'll take as much as you want to give me. So yeah, with that, that's my thoughts on that point. A lot of people are talking about locking the rates in at the moment for 2.2% or whatever. I think ANZ is doing an unoccupied principal place for 2.1%, 2.19%. What you've got to remember, this is not financial advice, of course, but you need to understand your position and then think about it and think, okay, if my interest rate is going to lapse, I'm going to lock it in for 2% over 2 years or 3 years. A lot can happen, right? We saw in February, everyone's out there fucking partying, hitting the clubs, fucking hanging out with the family, going to the beach, walking the dog. Now you're all fucking prisoners of your own house. And, the things are very different. So that's 1 month. What could happen in 3 years? It's a big time, right? If you fix the interest rates, it might be attractive to save an extra percent by fixing it now for 2 years. But what happens in 1 year time if they're negative 0.5%? And then by the time 2 years comes along, it could be back to 2%. We really don't know. So yeah, be very careful fixing rates, because I've got a lot of people calling me up talking about interest rates. A lot of people that have fixed rates 2 years ago, they've watched some stuff on, communist TV or whatever. They've heard one of the crime ministers, one of the treasurers, the crime minister, whoever at the time, saying, interest rates are going to go up, or whatever the case may be. And then they fix them, and then, here they are now wanting to get out. So really important to remember that moving forward. Can't trust any of them. What will happen to the middle class? Larger gap between the wealthy and the poor. Could they potentially try to redistribute the wealthy to the struggling? Debt wouldn't be considered wealth. Look, I think that we're going to see debt, I believe, is wealth, because if you've got debt tied to an asset which will be inflated in value, doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter if it's my fridge magnet here. Fridge magnets, it's got my Wi-Fi password for my new laptop that I got yesterday. But a magnet will cost more in the future than what it costs today, right? Everything's going to be inflated. So if you can take something from today that's got a debt, you're paying off today's debt with tomorrow's dollar, that's where, it appears that your house has gone up in value, but it hasn't. It's just you're using more money to buy it. I think the gap between the wealthy and the bottom will rise. The middle class area, which is everyone buying a house and the consumerism and whatever, that's going to be totally sort of decimated. So that's something to watch out for. Another one here, in the case of financial reset, what happens to mortgages? Do they get reset to the new system or something else? I have not seen a financial reset. I've never seen a scamdemic like this beforehand, so I would only be guessing. However, I believe there would be a point where things will run away and then at some point it'll be capped, and they will change the new money and or currency, and peg it to conversion. So one bullshit dollar is worth another scam coin, and then they peg it to each other. So until it pegs, there's nothing there. So we need to introduce a new currency, peg that currency, and then they would relate it back to there. Just seeing a lot of questions come through here as well, so I'll come back to this in a second. Am I eligible for the 20 grand for my super as I was made redundant? Would you take your super out or use it for a property purchase? Good question. With it, it's a good question. I was reading the comments after that. Look, what you've got to remember is that your super, we've all seen Wolf of Wall Street, right? And that's what's happening to your super fund at the moment is, you've got these guys that are like on Wolf of Wall Street, which are using your super fund for their own financial benefits and whatnot. You've got, if you're 30 years old, you've still got another 30 years before you can access it. You've got to make that call personally. You can speak to a financial advisor. I can't give you that financial advice because I'm sure that the commies are watching this, but all I can say personally is that if I had 20 grand right now compared to 20 grand in 30 years, 20 grand in 30 years is not going to be buying you shit, right? So that's my non-financial advice on this front. I'm going to start looking and cover your questions up here. Rockefeller's behind the NWA. NWO, if it begins, not NWA, they're the, rappers. But yeah, look, there's lots of theories out there. A lot of people are, buying into mainstream media. It's a fucking scam, guys. Mainstream media is a scam. It's controlled. It's a propaganda outlet. And there's some very bad controlling entities that rule the world here. Hi, Nathan. I'm trying to understand, how do you take advantage of property debt in a recession or depression? Does that mean the bank collapse that you will have a loan with that you still owe property due to being the title holder and the loan is... Wow, I'm getting messages are going. I've got too many here. Basically, for us to get through a recession is a contraction of money supply. It's a lack of liquidity in the system. So there's not enough money going around in the system. Basically, the only way to get out of a recession is to print more money, and the value of the money loses its value. So you need more of those dollars or currency to buy stuff. So the value of everything rises over recession. I made a post today, which is on this page. So go and have a look at the posts of a chart, right? And it shows that every recession, the markets fall just before the recession. That's why we're in a recession. However, it's the stimulus packages that push it up and take us out of this into a new cycle. Thoughts on physical gold as a currency hedge against inflation, whilst property is also good with inflation. So you also diversify with physical. I topped up gold today. Perth Mint has at least 1 month backlog. Apparently influx from overseas buyers buying up $1 million plus of gold bullion. Yeah, I have cryptocurrencies. I have precious metals. I have other financial instruments. I've got businesses. I've got property. All different parts form my financial position. And I think that, you shouldn't run out and just go buy precious metal. Like, I would never sell the house to go buy Bitcoin, and never sell the house to go buy precious metals. But if you got like a bit of a savings strategy, if you're saving, maybe put like 5% in. If you had 100 grand, I wouldn't go put 100 grand in the gold or silver or anything like that, or even Bitcoin. I might put 2 grand, maybe a grand next month, 2 grand a month after. What you're going to remember is precious metals don't have cash flow. Cash flow is very crucial because you have cash flow increasing. So instead of, for me, once again, not a financial advisor, if I was looking at 100 grand in my bank account right now, then I could spend 100 grand on a property that brings in 10 grand a year. That's 10% return. If I go buy gold, people still bought silver back in 2010, 2011, which is still not worth $50, which they paid for it back then. Those people are still waiting to get the money back. Just remember that, guys. Just remember that all the same actors out there talking about gold and silver, I do like their fundamentals, but just buying gold and silver, in a hyperinflation will do very, very well. But when that will come, how many manipulations will happen? I think there's still another manipulation that's why I say hyperinflation, I believe next 4 to 10 years, 3 to 10 years could be the case. But I could be proven wrong. But for me, I'd rather put my $100,000 into a property that brings in 10 grand a year, and then use that 10 grand a year to buy 10 grand of gold or 10 grand of silver or whatever per year. So, yeah. Jim Rickard is the man. Sharp, been following him for years. He's good. To be fair, a lot of smaller business protected by the business stimulus package meant to provide enough finance to roughly last them 3 months at a grinding halt, especially. It's a question of which will last longer, the economy or versus the virus. Good question. There's a lot of hurdles to overcome in order to get those stimulus packages, and a lot of businesses will not be eligible for them. So whether you've done your tax returns, whether you've had a 30% loss, maybe just a 20% margin, business might work on only 20% margin. And if it comes down 20%, you're not eligible because you haven't lost 30% of revenue. So some businesses won't be looked after. But what about shareholders' best interest? Good question. Sorry, what makes you think the interest rate on property won't go up while the economy is fucked and wouldn't break the bank to make money? The reality is that people can't afford to pay their mortgages down. Just any little incremental increase in interest rates will break the whole economy. So they need to, there's small margins in this. It's hammer time for the institution. So if interest rates went up, everybody would be screwed. All businesses have got debt. Everyone's got debt now. So it would implode the economy. They need people to have property. The property is being used as an ATM. People are going out, they're pulling out equity, buying an extension, buying furniture, buying a car, buying their wife a new boob job, whatever the case may be. Maybe that's not politically correct, but a lot of stuff that comes out of my mouth isn't. But people are using their house as an ATM. The system needs those houses to be used as an ATM. If they kill the economy by doing that, they will kill themselves. So what landlords' options as investors with 6-month eviction ban and the tenants not stupid to make the full use of this to stay for free? I believe that there will be a stimulus package. I actually talked about doing class action against the government today. A lot of you guys don't realise I actually have a law firm that I run. Basically looking at doing a class action and getting a lot of people together and be able to make some stimulus packages work. But if I go to do that, I'll let you know. But there's process in place. I talked about this earlier on. One, your property manager should not be allowing the tenants to do that. They're accruing debt. One of the other things that I have is debt collection firm. People pay their bills, right? They need to pay their bills. So, make sure that they pay up. There is, hardship and things there to obviously protect tenants, but they are accruing debt. If you don't pay your mortgage, you're accruing debt. Tenant doesn't pay the rent, they're accruing debt. Obviously, you've got to minimise that, having insurance policies in place, having good communication with the tenants to be able to nurture them through to pay as much as they can at this period of time. Michael, I hope everything's good out there. Out, control, delete. Control, out, delete. I use a Mac. I think it's a different button. But yeah, look, there's going to be a reset here, guys. So it's going to be interesting. Agreed, QE is here for the long term. If anyone's thinking that these little stimulus packages of everyone getting $1,500 a fortnight as a business, these stimulus measures are not going to be able to be reversed. They cannot reverse the stimulus packages that they're installing at the moment. This is insane. They can't take it back. They've put it here. It's like, the first homeowner grant. They put the first homeowner grant in for a couple of months, and here it is 20 years later. So, Paul, love your stuff, Nathan, but I'm a butcher and have to start early. I need to put it on earlier and shorter. I'm trying to be earlier, Paul. I'm trying to be earlier. I'm trying to do 8 o'clock every Tuesday. I have been doing these at midnight and stuff like that, but apologies, mate. It sounds like climate change. It does sound like that. Spot on. KO punch September. Yes, it's going to be September, October at that point in time. I could be off by a couple of days. Don't shoot me, but I'm alerting you guys now. So just remember, a month, a week, a year too early is better than being a fucking minute too late. Alf, so what do you recommend we do as a sole income one homeowner do? Lots of different things that we can do. We've got to catch up still. We've got to catch up. But let's have a chat as well about maybe this weekend if you're around. what options there are to protect yourself and take advantage of this time. If you are watching this and thinking, I've got an income, I've got a family to look after, I need help, whatever, I'm booked out 8 appointments a day until August, nearly the end of August now. And I'm doing Saturdays and Sundays to have conversations with you guys out there. If you do need help, reach out to my team. They'll try and put you in contact with me or one of my team members to be able to help give you some guidance to navigate through this period of time. What type of property? Today comparison, will 2 ounces of gold buy us in 5 years? I don't know on that one, Josh. There's been people talking about, an ounce of gold or ounce of silver will buy a house or whatever. I don't know, but I don't know. I believe that the precious metal price is being suppressed due to paper trading. As we can see, the stock market is being held up. They're buying bonds. We saw the repo market being bought up from the 11th of September 2019, which we saw last year, which is why the market took up. When I say it's a scamdemic, this shit was prepared for last year. It was baked in the fucking cake. So we need to all understand that as well, guys. So, but yeah, Josh, with that, I don't know, what they're going to value it at, but all I know is that the currencies that we have is going to lose much more of its value. Notice a lot of Tasmanian properties have price reductions now, Tyler. Yes. I don't buy in Tasmania, never bought in Tasmania. There's been some fucking spruikers saying, Tasmania is the greatest thing in the world. And, we know all those vlogs are that are promoting this stuff. It's not on the mainland. I'm not here dissing Tasmania. There's some places which are very undervalued. Sydney is experiencing a bit of a mild boom in blue-collar areas. The Gold Coast and Brisbane is going through a property boom, specifically the Gold Coast. Not all markets will be doing that, and there's different markets for different times. But there is some areas which are seeing property reductions coming through. Even parts of Western Australia are going up now, guys. So interesting out there. What happens if government commits can't be delivered? The boys go around with a baseball bat and belt the shit out of Scamo and all the other Prime Ministers. But that's what could happen. But in reality, if a government defaults, then there's a whole new structure that needs to be delivered. And I believe that the government's commitments all around the world won't be met. And that's why we'll need to see the IMF come in with the special drawing rights and basically install a world currency over the top of all the currencies to back all the currencies, which the IMF special drawing rights, in my opinion, will end up in the aftermath of this looking like the gold standard behind the dollars of the world. And eventually they'll start removing those dollars and say severely default, and then everyone will just use the straight special drawing rights directly from the IMF. And GST, any thoughts on the GST? It's another fucking scam. But are they going to lower them? I doubt it. I don't know. I don't see it going up. I don't see it coming down. I just see the GST staying stable there. Very good question here from Harpreet. Hey Nathan, good work. Is it really worth to defer the repayments? Very, very, very important question. Before anyone defers their repayments, before anyone decides to put their mortgages on hold, I think it's very important to understand your position. What happens if you go back to the bank in 2 months' time? I want to pull out equity, and they go, well, you can't even afford your mortgage. You haven't paid it to us for the last 6 months. It's not going to look too good with the bank. So personally, I think you need to get some advice around this. You can email my team. They can put you in contact with the relevant people to help you out on that front. But my thoughts would be, as a layman thinking, not a financial advisor, my thoughts would be is that if I wanted to potentially pull out some equity or do something else, I would restructure my debt prior to asking the bank for a holiday. It would be my thoughts on what I would do personally. But if you need help, just reach out to my team and we can look at your situation, assess what options there are, and then act accordingly. Colin, love your forecast. That is real. Thank you. Thanks for the feedback. I appreciate it. To say things as it is, and very unorthodox views. However, a lot of the time, based on the fundamentals, I'm right, unlike what these clowns on TV tell everyone. We have had a natural disaster every month in the last 6 months. Let's hope nature gives us a break for the next 2 years. That would be nice. If you look at how weather is created, they can actually create, there's a thing called cloud seeding, which I posted a lot about in birchFEED in the past. You'd have to go into Telegram and look up like certain things like cloud seeding or HAARP, HAARP, and I've got a lot of information in birchFEED about that. But you can actually make clouds and make rain happen, and it's actually a government thing that was done over the course of the last decade. I think Turnbull started it, but back when he was an environmental minister like 15 years ago or something, and would actually inject chemicals in the sky, and those chemicals create clouds, and then as the wind moves around, they can format rain, just like the Addams family, over the top of someone. So interesting stuff. But hopefully we do see good weather for everyone. Implications for the Fed and Treasury merger. Interesting. I have seen people talking about the possibility of Trump merging the Treasury, US Treasury, and the Fed, meaning that Trump would be in control of the Fed. I think it's a lot more complicated than that. The only reason why he'd be able to take over the Fed, well, what's happened to my screen here? The only way that I think he'd be able to take over the Fed is if the Fed was bankrupt and they had done with their job in the Fed and they were to move to a new area. So interesting. It could be that they have, like any other good lizard or snake, a snake would shed its skin, and when it moves out of the skin, the snake would slither away, and then the skin would remain dead on the ground. If you've caught the skin and the snake slides out of it, there's a fair few puns in there for those who are understanding of what I'm talking about there as well. That could be what may have occurred with Trump, but there's lots of theories that run wild. A lot of people out there talking about 5G, which I saw some questions in here beforehand about. What's my view on 5G? Because I know I'm getting asked it. With 5G, I don't know. A lot of people talking about 5G being the cause of all these problems going on with people, the corona scam, and causing people to get sick and whatnot. Radiation, the magnetic waves that are out there, the injections of vaccines. It could be something. I don't know. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a electrical engineer or whatnot to talk about radiation and that. However, it is very interesting, and I think that there is some merit there, so I would give it credit. There couldn't be that many people looking into it, talking about it, experts on this, if there wasn't something true inside of that. I've certainly done a lot of research into it, and I think that it does have some effects on us as humans. So it could be something there to look into further. The West will be Zimbabwe in the future. Yes, it will be. Venezuela as well. South Africa too. There's some other names that sort of come to me. A 20 billion injection into in Dopacom region for the QE also yesterday from USC. Public sector employees seem not to be affected in the current situation. Only the private sector employees do. Good point. In any communist society, we are heading for a communist, totalitarian, fascist society. If you kill the small business, kill the trade, there is only the wealthy and the power and the poor at the bottom. So all the middle disappears. That is a world that we're heading to. It's very interesting that the only businesses that are active at the moment are those multinationals. They have killed all other business in the middle. So thanks for Harpreet. Thanks for adding Palmjit into the video. Shout out to you guys. Thanks a lot for everyone. Adding your friends, adding your family. There is ways that Oliver said here, in what way can super be protected. I'm not at liberty to describe sort of financial advice over a Facebook Live, but looking at what potential issues may brew between now and the end of the year, for example. Stock markets could crash very much so. Talked about it earlier on in this video. I foresee that when the companies give their annual statements out around July, August this year, they will be presenting them to the market in September, October. We'll see that all businesses are insolvent at that period of time, and there's got to be some ramifications for that. Unless the one thing could happen is that the businesses don't fall in value, and you'll get a great opportunity to see what sort of scam and bullshit, fucking manipulated financial system we live in, and the media is a fucking lie to everyone. Alternatively, they will just crash, and at that point you would lose your super fund and all the funds, or a lot of the funds, maybe 20%, 50%, 80%, whatever it could be at that point. But there is ways to sort of mitigate that risk, depending on one size of their super fund, depending on what you could do with the structuring of it. It could just be manoeuvring a few things and tweaking a few settings in there. It could be a matter of getting a whole new structure, but I can't give you that advice. I can get that advice for you. Just send a message to my team. They'll get someone to speak to you and give you some feedback on your independent situation. Has there been a time in the world where the federal government bank deposit guarantee from 2008 to 2009? Yes, there was a bank guarantee. I actually posted the other day where the Australian government sold the rights to Australia. Like, it's actually very interesting for those of you that are on birchFEED that would have seen that the rights to Australia were sold in 2008, 2009, and listed on the stock exchange as a derivative for the rights of all of us, because we're all human capital to the system. So we were the security for them to be able to get a bailout in 2008 and 2009. So if you actually go through birchFEED from the other day, you will see the agreement from the Treasury's own website and the documents that were done to sell Australia as a security in 2008, 2009, that went very much under the radar, and that came in the form of an ADI. If you notice, it's pretty interesting that every country around the world, like the US has got a $250,000 allegedly banking insurance. In Australia, it's $250,000 banking insurance. Same thing all around the world. What happens to your cash savings if the banks imploded? Don't know. If you were in Greece, if you're in Cyprus in 2013 or 2015, you would have seen that the money gets jammed in the bank. Bank runs occur. But most importantly, the money is not yours. So once you put the money, so there's something really important, guys. When you put your money in the bank, it is not yours, right? So let's say that we have a business and we're going to lend money or do an account with the business, right? I give you 100 grand of stock as a business. You go insolvent, you owe $1 million, but you've only got assets of 100 grand. That means that everyone will be getting 10 cents on the dollar back. So looking at, if you had cash in the bank and the bank was to implode, it could end up in a scenario like that because you have deposited the money in the bank. The money is not yours. The currency is not yours. It's a bank's. And you're just a creditor in the balance sheet. That's all it is. You're just a creditor on the balance sheet. If you used things like Bitcoin, people ask me, what about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies? If you use stuff like Bitcoin, they can't print a bailout through Bitcoin, right? The value of Bitcoin buys more due to the fact of, and if we look at cryptocurrencies or any other sort of asset, right, like it's not going to be the fact that crypto goes up, it's that the value of the money goes down. There's so much, it's like, I can throw a bit of crypto or whatever and it buys more. When you say print money, what happens as heaps of places not wanting to take cash? How does that work? Good question, Ash. Hope you're doing well. What happens if people don't want to take cash? They're not actually printing cash. When I say printing cash, I could use a technical term by increasing the balance sheet, which is printing more money. Basically, they're not actually printing pieces of plastic with dead criminals printed on them anymore. What they're doing is that they are, entering extra digits, like I read out beforehand, onto the balance sheet, and that's what they're doing to make more cash. Hey from WA, hi Taylor, hope you're doing well. Neil, if we're so fucked, why would you borrow to buy an investment when tenants won't pay you and banks won't extend the 6-month deferral, and you can bet your job back it's going to be a big shit show September 2020. It will be very, very interesting in September 2020. I love buying broken things, right? I love buying broken things because that's where opportunity comes from. So imagine if you buy a property and then it gets a stimulus package to it. Imagine if they say to everybody that owns a property, you get 10 grand. Here's 10 grand credit to your loan. Whatever. Who knows? Who knows what will happen? Who knows? Right? Everyone's getting $1,500 a fortnight printed now, right? I was talking to my mum the other day. Mum's like 80 years old. I talk to her every day, but mum's like 80 years old, and bless her. And she's really stressed because I'm buying a property for $2.2 million. And she's like, oh, what about if the property, it's too bad, you shouldn't buy it, whatever the case might be. And the thing is that it's not. I asked her, like, what did my dad used to get paid, right? What did he used to get paid? And like, who's worked a job which would be like an 80 grand a year job now, if you're still alive, bless him once again. And looking at on that front, if my dad was earning that job back in 2000s when he passed away, he was on like 40 grand a year. And I said to her, like, people are getting paid 40 grand a year now for being on the dole, right? People are getting 40 grand for sitting at home, right? And this is something that if everyone is now connected to the matrix and they're plugged in to the matrix, they're having to go, oh, please, government, give me a handout. It's like a kid, right? Everyone's sort of like a big baby to the parent being the government and the central controlled system now. And they're like, please, can I have a refill of cup? I want to drink mum, drink dad, whatever. Like, that's what everyone's coming to the system for the stimulus. And it's just going to mean there's more money floating around. If you can control and navigate through this system, you could come out very, very well. This is where opportunities are created. If we look at our friend Bill Gates, he's obviously created a very good opportunity out of this. So don't look at it as being, so negative. There's lots and lots of opportunity out there. The market could be obsolete. It could be obsolete unless it's in your head. It's got in your hand. It's gone. I've had things in my hand and whatnot. No, joking, guys. Just gonna have a laugh. Exactly. If you can't touch your assets, you can't see your assets, you can't feel it, it doesn't exist. I don't like ETFs, don't like paper assets. I like physical assets, physical metal, physical cryptocurrency, physical property. CA, does jet fuel melt steel beams? I believe it doesn't. I believe it does not. It does not melt steel beams. But I have to go back and check a few, fantasy films from back in early 2000s to check and see if that would be correct. So only in America here, yep. They go into the computer and move a few numbers around. Ta-da, money. Well, that's it. That's it. The house market is about to crash. Look, could be two different things. If you go to the charts on this page, you will see a chart I posted the other day on my personal page, which talks about what has happened in all recessionary periods over the course of the last 100 years. As we go through a recession, property takes off because of the amount of money that we print. So I would like to understand, and I'm happy to debate it with anybody. And I don't think you're here, Nicole, to debate about the housing market about to crash. I don't believe it's about to crash. The market crashed in 2017. It's been slowly recovering from the middle of last year. And, what's going to happen now? It could hold. It could go down a little bit. It might go up. I think afterwards it's going to go whooshka, straight up. But I think it's just going to stay stable. I'm seeing property prices in areas go up in value. Some markets will be affected, some markets won't. So we still got to remember that there is a market out there, and when interest rates are 0.25%, everyone can afford to own property. So what's your thought on doing the payment plan instead of rent reduction for tenants who got financial hardship during this scam? All tenants should be paying rent if they can't afford to pay rent. Something that implemented into my business was for any of the tenants to say that they've lost their job. That's great. If you've lost your job, send us a letter and we'll talk to the owner. Once they send us a letter, it's a letter of separation, deed of separation. That deed of separation will allow the person to go to Centrelink and obtain, benefits and whatnot. So the tenant has now proved that they've got the opportunity to go there. We want to see what actions have been taken, and then if there is a shortfall, we'll work out some sort of payment plan. Obviously, we're not going to throw people on the street. We're not going to send the boys around. We're not going to do anything like that. However, it's important that you navigate it carefully. I am not, and my business is not, saying, oh, you poor tenant, let's review your rent and move it from 500 down to 300 or whatever the case may be. We are purely, you are accruing a debt, you are in debt, and that debt will need to be collected at some point. So the owner may wish to give a grant over that debt in the future if they get a grant, but at this point the tenant is liable for that debt. Sure, there is people that are in need, there's owners in need, there's lots of people in need. It's important that it is not abused, and personally, I'm just going to be sending all of them over to the insurance company, which I can't collect, but with it, I'm hoping to get standard arrears. I just did. And one of the other things as well, as a business, what I'm doing for my property management firm is that we're paying our owners on a weekly basis instead of a monthly basis, like normally a real estate agent will pay their owners on a end of month or a mid-month. Every Wednesday, we're doing disbursements. So all of our owners, we don't earn any interest on your money. Like, we can sit there with millions and millions of dollars of people's rents every week, and we don't earn anything from it. You don't earn anything from it. So being able to get access to that liquidity, we're just pushing the rent straight out to our owners. So if you've got a rental property, your tenant's paying us rent, the rent's going into our trust account, we're sending it over to you every Wednesday, you're collecting rent, so you can have better cash flow during this time. So that's one thing that we've implemented in my firm. So I let it crash and make sure that we have cash out of the bank. If you look at your next question, property will crash just like the GFC. Property did not crash in the GFC. I think it's important to go check the stats. There's a chart. I quit my job in the GFC. Property did very well in the GFC. High-end property, some other forms of property did get belted, but a lot of property did go up. So there is different areas in the economy. Bread and butter, residential sort of property was very well protected during the GFC. People did have issues. People did go bankrupt during that time. Interest rates were 9% pre-GFC. They came all the way down to 5s and 4% in that period of time. So a lot of people were saved in the GFC. But yeah, this time it's very different. People will not go bankrupt. That's the thing, guys. People think there's going to be a market crash. Here's the other point of that, right? And this might help you with the question you said then, Nicole. How can the property market crash because of bankruptcy? People can't go bankrupt, right? The bank's not allowing it. They changed bankruptcy law to stop bankruptcies from occurring. They changed the consumer affairs or the ACCC, whatever, for hardship laws for banks not allowing people to go bankrupt for defaulting on their mortgages. So it's how are we going to see the collapse if people don't have the ability to even go bankrupt? So, Corey, what about gold and silver? I've talked about this a lot. Gold and silver, I think it's cool as a tool, but I wouldn't go, throw the house at it. Like, I think if you can buy a little bit, like here's $200, here's $500, here's $1,000, here's $2,000. Buying it in chunks is cool, but to go out there and say I'm going to go throw 50 grand at it or whatever, that's not a plan that I do. But yeah. Stamp duty rates in New South Wales, have they been the same rate for the last 25 years? Stamp duty has been the same rate for a very, very long time, for as long as I've known. It's a good question to exact date. They're still charging stamp duty, I believe, throughout all of modern history. It's been the same rate, but like, let's say 3% of 100 grand is 3 grand, 3% of a mill's 30 grand. So obviously, naturally, they're making a lot more from stamp duty. There are restrictions on large transactions now from the bank. If it's not in your hand, it's not your money. Sadly, it's never our money because it's always a currency. but you've just got pieces of plastic with dead criminals printed on them. Even if you do take that cash out, the banks interrogate you like you're a drug dealer, you're in the prostitution ring, or you're fucking doing some dodgies by asking for cash. If you ask for more than like $2,000 or $5,000 or whatever, they're like asking you questions like, "It's my fucking money. Give me my money," right? But it's not your money. This shows that it's not your money at that period of time, and sadly, a lot of people will realise that shortly. Say there is a huge crash in the stock market in September to November. What is your prediction on house prices if that does happen? Good question, Melissa. Once again, in the GFC, there was massive crashes in the stock market. Like we've just seen a crash recently, like it hit down like 35%, 40% in a month. We didn't see house prices fall off a cliff. They are not connected on that front. So a lot of people do, pull their funds out. There's a lot of things. There's no clock which says like, there's people that say property clock and it's this time. Those things are all bogus. It controls with flow of money in and out of the marketplace. So if banks can't lend, then there'll be an issue. If banks aren't lending money, there's an issue. When will property fall? When the money costs too much, which at 25 basis points is very cheap to get money. When does property fall? When people can't get access to money. So that could be an issue and a trigger point. When there's an oversupply, which, we're going to need more people here paying taxes. So over the course of the next few years, we're going to be bringing a lot more people via immigration. What's the fundamental reasons for property falling? When people don't have money, that's cool. However, people are getting paid money from settling every week now still. There is still people with jobs out there. There is still an economy that is working. What we've got to remember is that like a lot of people are fearing that it's way to the other side, but there's still stuff going on. And people will, be opportunistic in this time. But we're not with some massive high interest rates. We're not, with a liquidity crisis at this point. And there is a lot of people with cash that they are looking to take from other forms of asset and looking for a safe haven. If we look at the Aussie dollar's lost 20%, 30% in the last month. If we look at, I think it's about 20%, sorry. If we look at stock market, lost a lot. Look at super, lost a lot. People looking for a flight to safety, and property is one of those things because it doesn't just fall off a cliff overnight. So, I don't think it's going to have the massive correction, but I could be wrong. And if that's the case, then I'll just go buy more property. So the opportunities there. Will it always stay at zero? No, the system needs to be regenerated, and they will throw whatever the kitchen sink at it to try and recover that economy and push it forward. Sorry, I just logged in many of the informational videos. I trust property price will soar in the long term with the money printing happening. What sort of prices in the short term, 2 to 3 years? I think we're going to stay very stable, and we're going to see a new property boom in the not too distant future, maybe 12 months, 2 years, 3 years. From all this money that they're printing, it's got to go somewhere, and I believe that we will see a large property boom. $1 million is nothing, correct? $1 million doesn't buy much nowadays, but it has real value and only increases at 1% a year. What else is real? I'm not too sure what you're referring to there, Josh. But if we're talking about, I think maybe you're talking about the precious metals. I'm not anti them. I have a lot. I have a lot of money invested into them. I think I'm a fan of them. I'm not discrediting that. Michael, how's Linda going? I saw your video with her on YouTube. Keep up the good wine. Linda's going good. Linda from my office. Linda, those of you that don't know, Linda's my office manager. She is a video with her with Koshi many years ago. That fucking Zionist fuck, yeah. And he tried to make it look silly on Channel 7. But Linda has a really beautiful story, as do a lot of my team. And Linda's helped a lot of people with their journey. Linda has dozens of properties herself and whatnot. So Linda's going good. So I'll tell her that you said hi. What is the solution to hyperinflation by properties? There's lots of problems that will come from hyperinflation that you and I can't even, none of us here can really fathom. Best thing would be to ask if you've got a friend that's from Venezuela, Zimbabwe, South Africa that's experienced hyperinflation, just get a bit of feedback from them. Some of them are from corrupt governments and whatnot, but who trust a crime minister and a scammo one as well. And it's not saying I don't like, the real prime minister or whatnot, but I'm just saying that, they're all a part of the beast and a part of that system. So, do you have a home remedy for this rash? Unfortunately, can't help you with the rash, but maybe I can help you with some funny stories about what's happening out there in the real world. Stimulus package to stop eviction from rentals who can't pay. Surely we can still evict for sales to go through. Look, I'm sure there's lots of different grounds there. There's a real grey area and red tape at that point. Where there's a will, there's a way, and it's important to be creative and not accept what's being told. So many people just go, oh, okay, mum, okay, dad. When I say, okay, mum, okay, dad, I'm looking up. I'm looking at fucking the government. I'm looking at the system, because most people in society are just grown-up babies, really. And, it's important to be able to, take personal liberty and freedom and being able to take control of your life. And I think that's what's important for everyone here. Nathan for Prime Minister. Tommy, I appreciate that. Once I thought when I was younger, I'd love to be the Prime Minister of Australia. Everyone has ambitions, but I would never think of something so worse to deal with the lizards and snakes that are around. So, yeah. Should people be nervous that they've used their parents' equity to help them buy property? Look, some people should be, because people have screwed up. I don't think, with interest rates so low, I see a lot of people not getting hurt. Like, it's very difficult for people to go bankrupt in the current environment. However, I do see people that come to us where they have structured their properties incorrectly and they're purchasing incorrectly and whatnot, and they do have risks. So, yeah. Do we take the cash out of the bank? I cannot suggest to go take cash out of the bank or leave it in there. I do not like having money in the bank personally. It does not mean that I have cash. I have different sort of financial instruments that are available and readily available. People can go take cash out of the bank and get themselves clobbered over the head and stolen and whatnot. So, with it, just be wisely. I think it's important to have a bit of cash, having access to liquidity to be able to take actions. Do you think September to October to get into the stock market in general, what should be the best cash allocation versus in property versus shares? Thank you. Everybody's position is different. If you'd like to just send an email to my team, I can get someone to have a chat to you a little bit further about that, and sit down and run through that. So, yeah. What should we do with cash in the bank? Personally, I like cash flow, so money just keeping to come through. I'm a big fan of cash just sitting there because it's losing its value. Use that cash. We're all living like nothing stopped. The world's still spinning. Still markets out there. There's still opportunities to be done. Everyone's position. Some people might sit there and go, I see people and they're like, I've got $2 million in the cash. And it's like, fuck, $2 million. I'd never want to touch that, right? So some people feel more comfortable with that. Some people feel more comfortable having different sorts of financial instruments and assets. So savings in the bank, there is no savings in the bank. It's all debt. Hi Nathan, what's the general entry level for purchase prices at your clients now? Anywhere from $15,000, actually $14,300 was the cheapest property I bought this year, and all the way up to millions, in the millions. As I said, I just bought something for 2.2, but generally for my investors, stuff that's in capital cities, Sydney, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Western Australia, Adelaide, Victoria even, 50,000 in capital cities, all the way up to 300,000, but generally 150 to 300, 350. Sydney I picked up one the other day, 13 k's out from the CBD, 299,000, rent for $300 a week. Not the greatest rent return in the world, but it is in Sydney and it is 299,000. So yeah. What's my plan? It's a very big plan. I've been talking about it a lot just over time in the last 12, 24 months. Went through a phase of consolidation there. Went through a phase of expansion and restructuring a lot of my affairs. Going through a point at the moment where I'm spending time renovating properties as they become vacant and whatnot, adding capital position to my properties, increasing the cash flow in the properties, and increasing my asset values of those properties, as well as still acquiring more assets. About 3 years ago, when this started happening, I started buying other forms of financial instruments rather than just property and rather than just businesses, rather than just cryptocurrencies, other financial instruments that are used, which I would borderline into weird advice if I was to talk about those things. But yeah, with it, I'm still very aggressive. I want to clean up and I want to take advantage of the situation whilst it's out there. So that's my brief, short part of the plan. Jay, heard somewhere the Perth Mint is chipping the gold to track it. What are your thoughts on this being true in relation to a Gold Confiscation Act? Should I be wearing an aluminium hat by even suggesting this? Look, good question. With buying stuff from the mint, I do not buy from the mint. I bought some over the years, like little bits and pieces. Like they wouldn't fucking chase me for what I get. I've got a balance of a variable, of like bullion bars and whatnot. I've got coins and whatnot. I've got all different types of sizes. So 1 ounce and 10 ounce and 5 ounce and 1 kilo, about 32 troy ounces, 31.5 troy ounces, 10 kilo in some instances. So, yeah, but the bigger stuff that you get generally has a larger premium on it because more of a design sort of trade to it. And to offload something like that, what we've got to remember is that if we have a hyperinflation, people will be paying like pennies and shit. So if you have a big fucking coin, you wouldn't even be able to buy, larger assets only. So, but I'm not a big fan of buying from mint. I buy from all different places. I haven't bought anything for maybe 12 months, 18 months. I've been doing other things. But yeah, there's opportunities out there. Dry throat. Great advice about refinancing. Thank you. None of the stuff I say is advice. It's just my personal views and thoughts. But yeah, with it, I think that anyone that's got a mortgage at the moment should be looking at restructuring their debt and just checking that they're in the right place with their financial vehicles or what their assets are owned by. So if you, as we go from this cycle to another cycle, you want to make sure that you're with the right banks, that you've got the right structuring, you've got the right debt facilities, giving yourself options. So, for example, at the moment, I've got one person who's selling off a property and they want to keep their loan open and they may not be able to get a loan normally, and they're purchasing more properties to attach to that loan so they can continue building a property portfolio. So if you can't get a loan, for example, and you want to sell off an asset, then you're just going to have your money go poof back to money heaven, and it's just going to be taken off that ledger. If you have the right vehicle, you could possibly sell off the asset, leave the debt facility open for a month or a year or whatever, and then reattach a new security to it, and be able to continue purchasing while things are still cheap. So debt facilities are very important. It's like the Titanic with a Kodak moment twist. Yes. Cloud seeding, another scam. Yes, there's lots of scams out there, lots and lots of scams. Unfortunately, people are, just caught up in it every day of the week. Property business will always trade. There's always activity out there to be had. What's your thoughts on Indian real estate? I do have. I employ like 100 staff as a part of the organisation in all different brands and businesses and whatnot. I do have some people that are in my networks that do know the Indian market well, and then do go back home and buy stuff. I've got lots of clients that buy stuff, like not through me, but just on their own accord. I hear that it's pretty good and pretty lucrative, and it's a very sort of weird sort of like you could have 10 people buying one block of land and stuff like that. But I do hear good things, and I hear that a lot of my Indian clients go, oh yeah, I'm going to sell something back at home, and I'm like, oh okay, cool, what do you got? And they tell me what they've got and what's happened over there. But one thing to remember, that when you're trading in any property in another country, that you're not just trading a property, right? You're trading a different law, you're trading a different currency. So you have, instead of just buying a property and having an issue with like potential tenant or whatever, now let's say you buy a property in the US and the US dollar falls, the value of the property could double. So it could go from 100 grand to 200 grand in the US. However, if the currency falls by 50%, when you convert that back to Aussie dollars, it's still worth what you paid for it, even though the property market doubled. So, and in your situation, I don't think we've spoken beforehand, but your name is Indian name, so I'm assuming that you're looking at maybe some property back at home or whatnot, and you're not just a native here in Australia that's saying, "Oh, I might go and invest over in India because it sounds great." So yeah, it's opportunities. I don't know the market. I know how to speak different dialects, of languages, but I don't know the property market there all too well. Stephen, hey mate, why is crypto so inviting in this time, and should investment be with caution for a player new to the investment? I think crypto should always be caution about anything. Doesn't matter if you're buying property in 2020, doesn't matter if you're looking at fixing your super fund up, doesn't matter if you're looking at just watching the TV. With it, there's lots of things that you should be watching out for on that front. Just figure the banks would still want to get their initial capital back. They do get their capital back. The banks do get their initial capital back, but it's worth pennies in the dollar in the future. What we've got to remember is that the central banks are the ones that, the gatekeepers here. Banks need to keep selling money to keep their profits up. So if you think about how the banks make those profits, right? A lot of people say, oh, imagine if there's a property bust and prices fall down. What we've got to remember is that the banks still need to make their profits. So they need to keep printing debt, keep printing more money and handing out there as debt and having more cash flow that's greater than last year to come through. And if we have a property boom, they've got to do something to push that back up. So it's just interesting time. Did a documentary on Australia being a company. Yes, Australia is a company. It is traded on the stock exchange. It's very detailed conversation for in here, but yeah, it is. It's obviously small if they're buying for a fund or a company. Don't know what that was relating to, Nath. You have such a wealth of knowledge. Thank you as always. Thanks, James. Thanks for everyone tuning in. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Spend the evening here. Great video as always. Loving the birchFEED. Get onto it, guys. Guys, if you're not in birchFEED, you need to be in birchFEED. It is free. You don't even need to be called a tight ass anymore for not spending $1 that it used to be. It used to be $1 a day. Do yourself a favor, send an email. Stop being brainwashed by the news. There's lots of information out there. I share it on a daily basis, just stuff that I come across. Some of it's very controversial and whatnot, but look at everything with an open mind, question everything, never trust anything as well. So get on the birchFEED. Thank you. Just insight on what I'm after. Thank you. A boom will come after this, Nicole. I don't believe that we're going to be sitting here in 5 years' time going, oh wow, they're going to print straight through this. The more money that they print into the system, more digits they create, the value of the money or currency is losing its value. So you need more of that to pay for the same goods and services. Hence why paddle pops used to be 80 cents. Now they're $2.40. Same as when I went to primary school and I used to get 5 apricot drops for 5 cents, 5 red frogs for $5, a $2 bag of chips for $2. Things aren't worth what they used to be, and that's just because of currency devaluation. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom, but getting a good relationship with money and understanding of the fundamentals out there is really important, I think, for everyone. So what if your tenants are international students? Any suggestions? They have lost jobs, have big schooling fees, and are really stuck. You need to get in there and negotiate with them. Make sure you've got insurance. Hopefully you've got insurance, otherwise it's a bit too late. Everyone should always have insurance. Make sure your property manager is doing their job and not pro-tenant. There's pro-tenant real estate agents out there, really, really shit. Just make sure you're on top of it. Make sure you're on top of it. So if you need help, reach out. I do run a large asset management firm where I manage thousands of properties on behalf of investors. So happy to help out where I can. Michael, if you have 100 grand in savings, is it a good time to buy shares? How much of your super can you access? Is your super insured by the government? Michael, I'm assuming that you have just tuned in. You didn't see the start of this video, and I do want to recap on a couple of things. So firstly, stock markets are going to get destroyed, in my opinion. Right? Be very clear on this. Companies will do their tax returns in July. They will realize, and it's hard to avoid, they've got to declare this, that the businesses are insolvent and bankrupt. And we will see these reports coming through in around September, October. I am not here as a financial advisor. None of anything I've said in this night's video is financial advice. I'm not telling any of you to do anything, but there is one thing that I'm telling all of you to really take care of. That is your super fund. A lot of people don't realize they might have 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand, 500 grand. They don't know because they don't look at it. But it's still your money, right? If that is the case, right, and it's just a theory that I have, and the markets do tank on that news, how are you going to protect yourself? You've got 6 months before that occurs. How are you going to protect yourself? Anyone with a super fund, anyone with a parent that is retired on a super fund, whatnot, need to get them checked out. Hit me up. I'll get one of my team to chat to you about what you can do to protect your super fund and get that sorted out. If I had 100 grand in a savings account, I would be spending it on something else that wouldn't be cash in the bank. But I wouldn't personally. I'm not buying shares at the moment. I've got trigger ready to push go and purchase some stuff, but just not right at this minute. So with it, I will be very open when I do purchase shares. That's not Corona. I'm just very out of breath from talking so much tonight. But one thing I saw recently as well, there's only in the last 24 hours, is that super funds have now put a cash out policy where you're not allowed to take out more than, you're not allowed to cash out of your super fund. So that is showing a liquidity issue in the super fund market. So do speak to a financial advisor on that front, as I am not one. Am I buying now? Yes, I've bought properties this year. I've just bought 100 acres. I will talk about that on a next video to talk about something really, really cool. Thank you for the feedback, everyone. What are you comparing ourselves to? The US, another failing market. Once detached from the falling empire, what happens? Do not know at the moment what is going to happen next, but it's important to look at what are if the water is, as I was saying earlier, if we've got an earthquake, then the water drains out. We know there's going to be a tsunami. What's in the way of that and what will occur, right? And people might go, it's going to be a big wave that crashes in. Well, then what happens at the tower? That do you want to be in the tower or do you want to be on the ground? You could get washed away or the tower could fall over, right? It's going, no, I want to be high up on that hill, far away from where this can happen, and be able to come down and do whatever I need to do at the time, right? And that's just calling it before it sort of happens. But let's look at in our own lives, how can we collectively and consciously be able to, protect ourselves, protect our families, protect our loved ones, protect those that care, educate yourself. Most people are watching fucking, what's that dipshit with the tiger and the mullet, that Joe Exotica bloke. They're watching that sort of shit on Netflix and kicking back and whatnot. If you get to go back in the world and you haven't learned stuff during this period of time, then you're going to be one of those poor people, which are going to be like an adult child living off stimulus packages, which are going to be, you're going to be a slave. It's going to be, you've got poor, middle class, top, and then there's ruling class on top. They're going to remove basically everything from here down to poor. So try and be on the upper end of that by educating yourself as much as you can in this time. Cool. QRD got Human Rights Act in January 2020. Yes. If I buy a property, should I make sure there's a tenant in place? Look, properties are still renting at the moment, guys. Still renting properties out. So if there's a vacant property, you can get them tenanted. At least one of mine this week on Monday, a tenant moved in. So definitely still tenants out there, people needing a property. Yesterday, I was in the office, and in my office I've got very high security, so you need to have like video call come in, and there's like all these vaulted sort of entries, because I don't want dickheads coming into my office and annoying me. But with it, someone called up, rang up, and I was like, came out, and I went and spoke to the person, and the person was the father of a tenant, and the person was scared that their lease was expiring and they wanted to continue the lease on. So it's important. Like, there's still people out there, people wanting stability at this period of time. It's not like the sky's falling and there's no tenants out there. People need to be stuck in their house. There's people wanting to move. There's people needing to move for whatever reasons that may be, and the world will still continue to keep going. So yeah. Do I believe that Scamo is doing a good job at the moment? Look, I think he's doing all right. But is he making all the moves, or is he the guy that sits there, gets told what he has to say? Like, I feel that government is just really bottom level of the food chain. It's just if you think of a big organisation, right, and as a pyramid, right, and you've got the top end of it, which is like the shareholders, the executives, the mahogany table and whatnot, and then you've got some like high-end level management, then you've got some regional managers, then you've got some state managers, and then you've state managers, regional managers, then you've got some store managers or smaller managers, and then you've got all the people underneath. All Scamo is he is the manager that's just down here. He's very low hanging fruit on the food chain. So, is he doing an okay job? Well, I think he's doing okay. Like, we're doing okay as a nation. I think as a nation we're doing good as well. All jokes aside, but he's not the one running the show. So that's the thing. So if Scamo was doing a great job, maybe we wouldn't even be here right now in this position, for better or for worse. So yeah. Neutral on that front, I guess. What bank has the highest liquidity in Australia? What percentage should they have, on your opinion? Good question. I don't even know which bank. That's why I like the big four banks personally, because I think they're most protected. They're too big to sort of fail, and they're pushing them up. If we look at Deutsche Bank, that's bankrupt at 5.78 euro. Anything under that is insolvent. They keep pushing them up. It's really funny. You see all the stock markets falling around the world, and there's one insolvent shit bank goes all the time over 5.78 euros. It's crazy. I heard Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself, but I can't confirm. Look, Jeffrey Epstein, I don't believe he killed himself either. I have a government job, but my passion has always been real estate. Are you hiring anyone in Melbourne to be part of your team? I haven't got any office in Melbourne, but always recruiting as a part of the B.Invested group of companies. I was going to shoot it out there a little bit later, early actually. So I'm just running out of saliva in my mouth from talking for 2 hours straight. We've got jobs available at the B.Invested. I'm looking for customer service staff. I've got 5 roles available in customer service. I've got 5 roles available in finance. I need 5 new brokers to be a part of my Zinger finance team. We're recruiting actively at the moment. I think we've got 21 positions available. So if you are needing a job, someone that needs a job, that could be well. I only like dealing with good people. So, I'm sure dickheads don't watch my videos. I know I've got a few haters over on YouTube, but, if you know people that are of good character, of good, character, happy to hear from, would like to, because we're trying to grow our team to expand during this time. So, thanks for that. Hey Nathan, have you been selling off some of the unit blocks you own? I've noticed some pop up that look familiar. What's the plan behind that? I haven't been selling anything. I'm not selling any properties. I did have to sell some properties before, if you're referring to some unit blocks in Tamworth that I sold a few years ago. Yes, I did sell some properties about 4 years ago, got myself in some money trouble when I realised that there was a liquidity issue with the bank. So I was settling 10 mil worth of property, had to sell off about a mil and a half worth of property to settle the other properties. So yeah, there is some properties I'm aware of that do look like mine because they were mine many years ago. They're wanting too much for them, but I sold them for a good price. And yeah, when I sold them, these guys haven't been able to sell them. Do I want to go buy them back? Probably not. I've got other stuff that I've been buying now, which is pretty cool as well. So I'm just buying properties. I'm in an active buying phase. I made it clear. Even news.com made it clear when I was selling off properties back in 2017 to everyone. They had to go and say, "Oh, it looks like Nathan's going broke. He's selling some shit." But no, I'm actively buying, and I said it to them at the time as well. So yeah. Don't you find it odd how the new job seeker payment is exact amount needed to pay back the average Australian mortgage? Is almost as if lots of people get made redundant and the banks need to garnish wages. There would have to be a shortfall into the stimulator. Exactly, right? This is a scam-demic that we are faced with here. Scam-demic. It's all by design. How many business do you think will recover from the corona versus the one that will close for good? This will surely have a chain effect from landlords to banks. I believe that we're going to see stimulus measures to put liquidity into places like Westfield or QIC or whatever, those commercial real estate trusts. And just remember, guys, here's something very important. This could be the most crucial thing that you're about to learn tonight from this 1 hour and 50 minutes that you've been watching. Be very careful. I've talked about your super fund. Get it checked out. What does a super fund consist of? It consists of shares, which we know they're going to report that they're completely fucked out of luck in the September, October sort of period this year, maybe a little bit earlier than that. However, people go, "Oh, my super fund is invested in a property," right? Well, shopping centres don't go to Combank and say, "Hey, I want to put an extension on the top of this. Can you give me a 95% LVR and come and value it?" They don't do that, right? They go and build bonds and they go and build financial instruments to put liquidity in themselves. And at that point, how many people's super funds are full of all this commercial junk rubbish that's about to get? It will get bailed out. 100% will get bailed out, but what's going to happen to your super fund? So hence my important message of this video is a lot of people have fucked their supers right now because they didn't do it before this occurred. Some people have heard really humbling stories, messages of people saying, "Look, I took your non-financial advice and protect myself beforehand." There is a second opportunity for that to occur. The window is closing, and as you get to the end of the financial year, it will be much harder. So if anyone have a super fund, protect yourself, go restructure it, speak to a financial advisor. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not here to tell you what to do with it, but do for the fucking life of your future, make sure that you do look into it and do at least look into your super fund and go, what the hell's going on here? So yeah. But yeah, businesses, I believe that we could lose half of the businesses out there. How adaptable to change are businesses? What's going to be the flow-on effect? All those people that own the businesses, there's going to have to be bailout packages, bankruptcy packages, bankruptcy jubilees, debt jubilees that will occur. There's going to be a lot of forgiveness of debt here, guys. There's going to be a lot of forgiveness of debt. Otherwise, there's going to be so much carnage on the streets. It's going to be unlike anything ever before, and it will turn us all countries will end up like third world fucking countries if there isn't a lot of stimulus to get this out of trouble. And then my property manager mentioned that the tenants couldn't pay. It's better to break the lease with their agreement and relet. What do you think about it? Did realise you do property management too? Yeah, I do have a property management only firm. I don't like real estate agents. I'd prefer to have like wealth managers manage assets. So do look at it differently. If a tenant's in a fixed lease, get them to break the lease. and then pay for you to advertise and pay rent until you find a new tenant. That'd be the best option there. So you make them pay the reletting fees and everything like that. Certainly don't let them off the lease. It's either them or you, right? Like you got bills to pay, you got everything to pay. So make sure that you're not getting the piss taken out of you from your property manager. What percentage do you think property will drop? The media is saying between 25 to 40. Is there anything truth in that? Susan, really important to watch the rest of this video. I talked about that in depth tonight as to why I don't feel that property prices will fall. A lot of crap around that, but I did put a lot in there. Are you subdividing the 100 acres? I'll build some cheap quality investment properties. No, I'm not going to subdivide. I don't subdivide anything. I just keep my properties for the fun of it. But I am going to share with you guys something really cool with that in the not too distant future. So I will keep you posted on that. Those Kenworth ones are up for sale late last year. That's why I asked you. I saw that they were up for sale. There were some properties that I owned beforehand. So are we better off with the self-managed super fund? Everybody's position is different. I can't give that sort of financial advice. However, I do have people that can help you with that. Everybody's position is different. If you do have a super fund, if you're concerned about your super fund, my last advice, get your super fund checked. So with it, flick us a message and make sure that you do protect your super. On that note, guys, I was meant to do a phone call an hour ago with one of my clients. You know who you are. I'm going to hop off this video. Thanks a lot for tuning in again. I've got to hop on the phone. With it, guys, if you need help with anything, reach out to my team, flick us a DM, send us a message. If you're not on birchFEED, you need to get on birchFEED. It is absolutely free. And you'll do yourself a big favor by getting on there. So, join up. And once again, welcome aboard to all the new people inside of birchFEED. It has been phenomenal sort of growth in there, and it is for free. And I do share all those messages. All the messages are me. Setting them, doesn't matter if it's 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the arvo. It's all me. So thanks a lot, guys. We'll catch up soon. Have a good evening. Stay safe. And I'll be back soon with some more information, and I will see you next Tuesday. Bye for now.